So in the administration introduction, we're going to do a brief overview. We're going to talk about the environment, the administrative interfaces you're going to have, and then we're going to look at exploring the environment. So someone's been talking to you since 8:30 this morning. You'll be glad to know that in about 15 minutes, maybe less, you'll be getting your hands on to a Viya environment and doing some stuff yourself. So in terms of administration, for a Viya administrator, you saw this morning when the guys were talking about architecture and deployment, it is not a simple environment, it is a fairly complex environment. In terms of administration, there's many tasks that an administrator would need to perform in the environment. Some of those tasks an administrator is going to be able to do on their own. Other tasks, they may need help from others, from a Linux administrator, maybe from an LDAP administrator. And the other thing is, in terms of administration, the job's never done, right? It's when the environment's up and running and it's operational and people are using it, administration's an ongoing process. There's always things you're going to have to be doing to the environment. In terms of administrative tasks, we can kind of break them into two sort of broad categories. We have initial tasks. So those are the tasks that when you get a new environment, the things that you're going to have to do right away, like making sure the right users and groups are in there, making sure people can log on to the environment, authentication, making sure that there's somewhere for people to store their content, providing access to data so that data management people and report developers can access the data. So things that have to happen before anyone can use the environment, the initial tasks. You maybe do them once, you might go back to them occasionally. So those are one set of tasks. And then the other set of tasks are the ongoing tasks. And they're things that you would do on a periodic basis. Some of them may be daily, some of them weekly, maybe some of them monthly or 6 monthly at different intervals. And they're things like updating your software, so maybe applying a hotfix or moving to a new version. Monitoring the environment, making sure it's not using too much memory or too many resources. In some cases, auditing the environment, making sure if something's changed that should have changed, who made a change, what happened, that kind of thing. All those things that keep the environment running and do the care and feeding of it. So that's the ongoing tasks. In the administration materials, we kind of have a workshop scenario. We have a fictional company called Gelcore, and it has 3 departments. It has the HR department, the sales department, and the finance department. And we're going to start off with a deployment that's pretty much clean. It's been, the installer's gone through and deployed Viya and called you up and said, hey, Mr. Administrator, I'm done. Apparently your services are up and running. Now it's your job to get the environment running. So the high-level requirements for the administration for this environment are, initially we don't want the finance users to be able to access it. We just want the sales and HR users to be able to access the environment. For those HR and sales users, we want to completely separate their content. So an HR user shouldn't be able to see the sales reports, and a sales user shouldn't be able to see the HR reports. We do have existing VA content in SAS 9.4 that we want to be promoted into Viya. So the customer has said, I've made an investment in SAS, in SAS 9.4. I've done some stuff and I want it to carry over into Viya. We want to make sure that the environment's performing, so that we must make sure that monitor it so that performance is good and we're not running out of resources. And then also, at the end, when we're done setting up the environment, we want to make sure that sales has 75% of the resources in the environment because they've put in 75% of the money. So they expect to get their money's worth for what they've paid for, and the guys in HR only ponied up 25%. So sales should get 75% of the resources. So that's kind of our high-level requirements for the administration of the environment that you'll start off with. So as I said, you're going to get a freshly deployed Viya environment. We're going to start off just by exploring it, so getting in and looking at where the configuration is, what's on each machine. Then we're going to go through the initial administration tasks to prepare the system for users. So I will go through those tasks basically for the rest of today and part of tomorrow. And then following that, Scott will be up and he's going to do the managing, monitoring and maintaining the deployment, so the ongoing administration tasks. That should take us through the end of tomorrow. And then the last part we have is a kind of troubleshooting section where we're going to only have a few slides, and then we have, I think, 6 issues now that we can introduce to the environment. So you're going to run a script, it's going to do something to your environment, and we're going to ask you to fix it. So to identify what the problem is and try and fix it based on what you've learned over the previous 2 day and a half. So kind of a fun way to finish up. So we have a day and a half with you for administration. Obviously we can't cover absolutely everything. So to point you to some of the key resources you might want to look at if you've got interested in more depth in a particular topic. So the Viya 3.4 administration guide, that is the table of contents on the right hand side. Our documentation is really good now. They really keep up with R&D and get it out quite quickly with the software. So there's a lot of detail in the administration guide. I would advise if you're interested in more detail on something, you'll get more detail from the administration guide than you'll get in the class. The Linux deployment guide, there are some of the topics that are related to administration in deployment just because of the nature of the 2 things, right? Deployment and administration, there's overlaps in certain areas. It's already been mentioned, but this class will be in the virtual learning environment. It actually is already without any audio, but the audio will be added in the next few weeks. So if you don't get enough time on a particular topic in class that we cover, you can always go to the VLE. You can look at the slides, you can look at the hands-on, you can reserve the same servers that you'll have in class for the next day and a half and try something again or try something different yourself to continue your learning about Viya. And then the last one there, SAS for Developers. I don't know if you're aware of that site, but that's an external site which covers all sort of the programming interfaces to Viya and SAS. So the REST API, CAS actions, Python, Java, Lua, all those open source interfaces.